4 items that should be on your publications committee agenda in 2015. Maureen, why don't you come on up? Maureen Knapp.
Just to kick us off, before I introduce the panelists, how many of you have been involved with a publications committee? How many of you were involved with shaping the agenda of that? And how many, when it came time to make the agenda, just dusted off last year's agenda and called it a day?
Oh, they've never did.
Liars, all of you. That was sort of how this idea evolved, sitting through many publication committee meetings and thinking, this sounds awfully familiar. I thought that was an agenda item from last year and or an action point, which was even more frustrating. So approach this session just with a couple of things. We're going to give you 4 things that should be on an agenda coming up. I was going to use the word could, but they should be. Whether those 4 things resonate with you or your society partners, maybe you have something else to substitute in, but approach it from this perspective. Think critically about how you build that agenda. It's shaping the entire force for the coming months, maybe even a full year if you're meeting annually around the annual meeting, which we often do. And consider that, based on what we heard this morning, it has to answer a lot of questions. It has to underscore the entire essence of the society publication agenda. So that's really why we want to frame it that way. So let me quickly introduce the panelists, and I'm going to go quickly. There's four speakers today, and we don't have a ton of time. So we're going to start with Ann Michael, president of Delta Think. And you can read her bio, but what I appreciated about Ann is one of my first earlier conversations with you and the pure energy and ideas that were bouncing back and forth on what direction to take this. So I think you're in for a treat when you hear her first kick us off, kind of set the scene for the rest of the presentations. Next, David Sampson from ASCO, coming to us from the society perspective, but after many years on the for-profit publishing side. So you're going to hear a really interesting perspective from him. Lots of numbers, and I understand now he has his MBA, and that made sense when I saw your presentation. So it made perfect sense to me after I saw his presentation and bio together. You'll definitely feel that from him. Then we're going to move back to Diana Olson for the IDSA. You're wearing your committee publication staff position hat today, but you're also the head of communications at the IDSA. So again, appreciate that about her. She's working with this amazing organization in a very, I would say, interesting time for infectious diseases, but stepping off today to look at this interesting dialogue. And then finally, Simone from Wiley. And what I love about Simone is, although she's had a long history in publishing, the last 15 years have been with Wiley. And I appreciate that because I've spent 15 years at one publisher. And as I look out at all my old colleagues who have come and gone and come back again, I feel a kindred spirit there. So I look forward to hearing from you. So that's all I'll say, and I'm going to start. We'll start with Ann coming on up. Thank you.
So good morning. This mic does take a little bit of getting used to. It's very sensitive. I am trying something new today. I have little cards so you all get to see the granny glasses look so that I can read them and not read them, but kind of use them for reference. So my subject, the subject that I'm speaking about is moving members from print to e. And to prepare for this, I had a lot of my own ideas, but I decided that no one really knows this better than many of you, because some of the people I contacted are sitting here. So I sent out an email with a few questions to 18 people in different publishers. So we had commercial publishers, society publishers from science, medicine, engineering. And the reason why I thought it was real important to get a broader perspective was because the answer to the question of how you move members from print to e is it depends. And what does it depend on? Well, it depends on a lot of things. First of all, it depends on the kind of content you're talking about. Are we talking about scholarly articles, research articles? Are we talking about news and commentary? People use and consume those things differently. It depends on the subject. Is it medicine? Is it engineering? Is it a scientific subject? And even more than that, even that delineation is too broad. Which part of medicine is it? Is it, orthopedics or, infectious disease? And so I think you're going to find as we go through this that there's a lot of different ways to look at this subject. And one thing I would like to kind of caution everyone about is that people really love extremes. So all the time we hear print is dead, or just how everything's going to be online or whatnot. And everything is. And obviously, I'm certainly someone who likes to be on the bleeding edge of where we're going. It's kind of where I live and where I enjoy to be. But the reality is that we're going to see some different perspectives as I kind of go through what some of these folks said. And I think those are perspectives that are valid and that when answering this kind of question, you need to take a balanced approach. So why move from print? I think I wrote big enough. Oh, this is good. So the first thing that people will talk to you about is cost savings. You're going to save a lot of money. You don't have to pay for paper. You don't have to pay printing expenses. And I'll get into more of that in a second. Another thing you'll hear is the environment. It's more responsible not to print. We're not having an impact on the environment through printing. You'll hear people say, well, print is really kind of cumbersome. It kind of gets in your way. It's not really the best medium for search and discovery. There are better ways to manage and to search content than through print. And then, again, the print is dead. It just sounds really cool to say that, doesn't it? Don't you sound like, you sound on the cutting edge when you say, well, print is dead, and people don't even ask you to say anymore. So it's a wonderful way to sound intelligent and not to really have to go on and back it up with anything, not to be snarky. But so of the people that I spoke to, a lot of them said that print is still required. And so, well, why? So one was advertising revenue. And some of you are in the room and may recognize your own words, which have been anonymized. But one person said, print advertising is the most direct revenue stream we rely on. Of course, as a secondary journal, we've seen our print and ad revenue erode significantly over the last 5 years, even though our publisher, redacted, is forcing a bundled ad strategy. That hasn't improved our ad revenues, why it was redacted. Online advertising rates are significantly below print, but pharma still wants to see print circulation. That's one person's take, but that's true. A lot of organizations will tell you they have print because they still have a strong print revenue stream from advertising. Others will tell you they don't have any. So if you're talking about orthopedics, for example, or strong medical subspecialties where there's a lot of print advertising versus microbiology or some other places where there may be less, you'll see that their move is going to happen faster in some places than others just because they want to preserve revenue. Members, it's a tangible benefit. So I definitely need my glasses for the quotes. So a couple of quotes about membership and how membership wants print. And this one person said, we get anecdotal complaints about getting print, but all the market research says they still want it. Another quote, the other big issue for many societies is that the print copy of the journal is a tangible, physical object they can give to members for their membership fee, a monthly reminder that they are part of a group. Other benefits, like discounts on OA fees and such, are less tangible and less effective for that purpose. So membership, a lot of times, some of them, they still want print. One person, which I absolutely loved, said that print was simply another device. We talk about mobile, we talk about online, and if you put it in that perspective, another medium, another delivery way, it's another, quote, device with its own specific purpose. Some purposes it doesn't serve well, and other purposes it may serve very well. No medium ever completely disappears. Print will always be with us. It's a matter of degree. So, international, other things that came up when people said, well, why would we keep print, is that international institutions often, and some I've heard even domestic, require print or require a print copy, which is diminishing, I believe, but is still definitely an issue. And then something that came up, so the way I'd focused this is I asked them 3 questions, and then I said, well, what didn't I ask you? And a few people came up with some intangible benefits to print. And one which is really interesting, and is true, is from a brand perspective. So anecdotally, reading through what people said, a lot of them, one group that had moved completely over to online, had said that they get a lot less cover image submissions. And someone was talking about branding, that generally that the print embodies a passive marketing mechanism for the society and for the publication itself that isn't as effective in electronic medium. So one thing that I thought was very interesting, a lot of these organizations had done research, and print, the desire to have print from a membership perspective too was not always related to age. So everybody says old people want print, young people don't. And there may be some truth in that, but the reality is it's a lot more complicated or granular than simply that. And it really always comes down to use case. It really comes down to what they're using it for. So one of the things that I had mentioned was that people talk about the costs of print, that one primary driver to get rid of print is because of cost. Tangible costs, mailing, printing, paper or whatnot. But someone that answered these questions had a great point and said that you all have been refactoring print for years now. You've been reducing page budgets. You've been, considering different qualities of paper. You've been managing print as an expense. And while there is substantial savings, and everybody pretty much did agree with that there were a lot of ways that print has been managed to be less of the impact that it would have been had it been left completely unchecked. Another interesting intangible issue that's a cost is and it probably could be tangible. We could probably figure out a way. A lot of organizations see print as a very big impediment because it's the center of their processes. And everything they do is then after print or with the lens of a print requirement on it. And so one of the organizations that said that they had abandoned print now and had gone completely online, was saying it was liberating that all of a sudden, not only did they get rid of a lot of cost, but they did not have a membership that was very insistent on keeping print. But they were able to change the way they did things. At one point, I would just argue as an aside is they probably could have changed before that too, even without. But the absence of print made the contrast so stark that it was easy to see what they could eliminate. So, I guess the question comes down to there's a whole bunch of questions. What's your revenue tied to print? What are the costs? How do your members feel? And so just some common threads that I wanted to kind of bring this together and leave you with is that, well, what do you do? Well, one thing I think you do, and a lot of these organizations do, is that you analyze what is the significance of print to your financial health and to your membership and to your market. And based on that, you might employ different strategies to limit or gradually move away from print, or you might decide that it's time, that there's going to be a point where our little curves on our analyses cross in such a way that print is just too prohibitive to continue. But base it on data, and base it on data that's specific to your organization, to your finances, to your members. And I don't think that one person can say, without knowing who you are, you should do this or you should do that. It's a question of understanding these parameters. I would highly encourage people that regardless of what you do with the get rid of print or not question, that you really take a long, hard look at how you manage the creation, the management and delivery of your content right now. And if you have processes that are print-centric, that you really consider becoming more content-centric and putting print in its rightful place as an output according to whatever needs your members and your organization has for print. Some tangible things that I think are good to think about if you're starting a new journal. Start it online only. Let's not create the legacy that we then have to have a discussion about later. So that's one way to do that. And also, another common strategy that I've seen myself and also that these folks have mentioned is that a lot of membership societies that are looking at print and they're saying it's really financially not viable for them, but there's a strong desire for it with their membership, are starting to adopt an upcharge for print, where your membership comes with your online-only version of content, whatever you are accruing to members as a benefit, and that if they want print, they can certainly get it, but they will pay for it. And interestingly, they haven't seen as much pushback as I would have expected, and partially is the positioning of this. So when you are trying to manage costs, you're trying to be more efficient, you're trying to care about the environment, people understand, they come around to the understanding that if they want print, they're going to have to pay for it. So again, that's one more tactical strategy. But at the end of the day, it really does depend. It depends on who you are, who your customers are, and all of the financial and market implications that would come around removing print. Thanks.